Hello, my name is Nguyen. This is my experiment C video. So I had unknown numbers 280 and 206. So first I'll go over my unknown 280 and how I determined its compound. So first, I looked at which compound or which peak stood out to me the most, and it was this peak around 1700. And from that, I know that it is a carbonyl compound, so I wrote down that I have a carbonyl on the side. And there is no peak around 1600, so I know this is my non-aromatic compound, and I wrote it above and underlined it there for you. And then so the next peak that I checked was these two peaks over here, and from that, since it's between 2800 to 3000 frequency, I determined that it was a CH, specifically sp3, so there's CH sp3. And then the next peaks were these couple of peaks to the around 1100 to 1300. I'm going to circle them over here, around here. So when I compared all the possible carbonyls, I determined that it would probably be a carbon-oxygen bond in one of those peaks, which would be an ester, make up an ester, since between 1100 and 1300. And also, since there's another peak around that, I determined that it could be an ether, possibly. And so I narrowed it down to around 3 different compounds that were esters. And one of them had an ether, which was the one that I chose. But now I'll bring it down to the NMR to talk about that. So for my NMR, I had to measure the height with a ruler for the, because I wasn't given the integration for this NMR. So when I did that, and then I solved for the number of hydrogens, I got 12 hydrogens in total. And actually, when I check the compounds, the one that's in the square, it actually gives me 12 hydrogens, the 2-ethoxyethyl acetate. And also I just double checked with the location splitting pattern in neighbors. Here I'll just go over this 2 CH3s. The furthest one on the right is a triplet. So that means there's 3 hydrogens, or 2 hydrogens on the neighboring carbon. So I determined that this methyl was that one on the end, and then the other one was on the E over here, because since it was a singlet, there's 0 hydrogens on the neighboring compound, which was this carbonyl. The circle wants to show up right here. So yeah, and then the rest are pretty self-explanatory. Or this quartet actually would be where I labeled B, because the neighboring carbon has 3 hydrogens, and then the 2 other ones are just D and C, just have 2 neighbors, which means they have 2 hydrogens, and those were the CH2s. So that's how I determined that the 2-ethoxyethyl acetate was the compound for my unknown number 280. So now for my next compound, for my next couple graphs. So let me move the graph. So this one is number 206. So since I knew the other one was non-aromatic, this graph would be the aromatic one, because he told us that we would be given 1 aromatic and 1 non-aromatic. And here you can see there, I labeled a peak around 1600. That was the first one I noticed and I checked. So that means it would be aromatic, because also I checked for overtones between 1800 to 2000, and there's visible overtones there, so that's how I knew it was aromatic, kind of confirmed it. And then I drew a black line here because I just checked this to be a CH-sp3 again, because it's before 3000 and around 2800 to 3000, so it's a CH-sp3. And then the major peak that I really looked at was this, between 3300 to 3400. from that I know that it could be an amine, and since there's 2 spikes, it would specifically be a primary amine, so it would have 2 hydrogens, NH2. So then from those peaks, I basically narrowed it down to these 2, because the ones I circled in blue, because there's no carbonyl, or I didn't see a carbonyl compound peak, because there's no peak around 1700, so I eliminated all the aromatic compounds that had a carbonyl. Now if I go down to my NMR, this NMR I kind of struggled on. So what I did actually was, I also had to measure the amount of, or the height of the peaks, because it gave me the integrations at the bottom, but it wasn't just for like the individual, it was for like the longer entire like peak or whatever. So I just made sure to measure the peaks and then solve for the number of hydrogens that way, and from that I got there was 11 total hydrogens. So basically after that I did that, I just compared how many hydrogens were in the 2, or in this blue circled compound and this one that's red circled. Since this one is primary, I was more leaning towards this one, the one that I'm circling or pointing at with the arrow, because it has 11 hydrogens. And for the location, splitting, and number of neighbors, I know the one to the furthest right is a singlet, because it's the most easily visible, but the other ones, I couldn't really tell if the lines split off into a triplet. I assumed it was a triplet because I saw little cut off peaks, and instead of like being visibly a singlet, there's like some lines around there, so I just assumed it was a triplet. And then I have the aromatic, because I know it's aromatic, and I know there's an amine, so from that I basically eliminated my other options and just ended up with this pick. So yeah, that's how I determined my compounds. Again, this is unknown 206, and it is phenethylamine, and the first one that I showed was number 280, and I determined it was 2-ethoxyl acetate. So yeah.